Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to the Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Today, our guest is Matt Hoffman. Matt, how are you doing today?
Very good.
Awesome. Matt, let us know where you live and what you do.
I'm based in Austin, Texas, in between Austin and New York typically. And I run a company called Sandstorm, and we're changing the way businesses are able to produce media to advertise themselves. This is mostly consumer businesses today.
Awesome. So, Matt, can you guide us how many hats you are wearing at this point? Because a founder may wear a lot of hats. So what are your core responsibilities?
Right on. I quite a bit through everything. I'd say let's just take the product lens, and I'm touching everything from product design to actually building out UX flows to the actual implementation of these features. And we're obviously talking to a lot of customers all the time and trying to iterate really fast on their feedback. So the PM hat as well. And then everything from distribution of our own company. So how are we reaching new businesses? How do we maintain their success? And steamroll our industry, which right now is taken up by a lot of, say, weak players and former service businesses that can now be changed through the invention of our technology.
Awesome. So as you are also acting on multiple roles, so which one is more challenging, or you can say which one is more that is consuming your energies?
Yeah, I think the one that's been most interesting for me to kind of slot into is one more like a technical manager. Managing technical talent is something that's rather new. I don't have an extensive background running tech businesses, let's say, or managing a software product, but I think I've slotted into the role well. I think I work alongside engineers really well, and I think they can say the same. And I'd say, pushing down a product roadmap very aggressively. I've been able to see it in consumer businesses, right? Like the mobile app background I have, but now this B2B business is very much so talking to people and actually putting it into the product what we discuss on those calls. So I'd say, is it challenging now? Not as much. I think I've gotten in my routine and get to do it really well. But coming from mobile apps into this B2B SaaS type of product, it's certainly different. The consumer stuff, you can't really talk to a million users. On the B2B SaaS side, unless you have probably tens of thousands of customers. When you have larger ACVs, you can get to really know your customers well. On a first name basis, they reach out to me on Slack, sometimes my phone number directly, and we're able to get new product out very fast. So definitely a lot has been learned.
So Matt, because you are offering a product, so can you guide us a little bit about your product? What are your offerings, and what was the inspiration behind to start the product?
Sure. There's going to be a massive shift in media for any companies distributing their products or services through standard ad channels, let's say Meta or TikTok or Google. And that big change is that it's always been hard to produce media internally. You need a media team, you need really smart producers and directors to get anything out in film for any idea that you have. The thing that we're going after is allowing or enabling any business that's typically facing consumers to generate all types of angles of media and broadcast it in front of them on your typical ad platforms, and just do that at a much better and faster pace than you typically could. And there is some headcount replacement type of pitch where you maybe had 15 or 30 people for a role. Now you can probably consolidate that down to 5 or 10 really strong killer talent that are using the leverage of our tools. And how we got here, I'd seen growth at mobile apps, large e-commerce businesses, some B2B companies. And through that, realized, hey, there's not one centralized platform that really does understand the enterprise that well to the point where they can pitch it in media. And obviously on the cusp of this is generative media is obviously growing very fast. It's being adopted pretty well by businesses. But how do we accelerate the adoption of this awesome technology in businesses that could use it so well? And so I saw all of this. And at the same time, you're talking to these customers and they can't quite figure out how to implement this technology. So there's going to be this company that sits at the middle in almost the digital transformation layer, which is you have an enterprise, they want to get something done. You have the software product that can do a lot or let's say the models as a whole can do a lot. And you're going to have a business in the middle that understands everything about this business and can action media on behalf of the business and be this point of leverage for the business to understand how to use this new technology.
All right. So, every business needs marketing, and marketing is directly associated with the sales as well. So, I believe obviously you must have something for the marketing as well. I'm not sure if giving some time to marketing or not, but still, I believe you must have some idea about it. So, how you are marketing your product? Because I don't believe that your product is something like that we can sell on Meta, using Meta ads, sort of like that. So how you are marketing your product? Like you're using online marketing, offline marketing, or any mix and match?
Sure. Yeah. So I think I've been fortunate to be close to some customers early that I didn't really necessarily need to market to. And I think one of the best forms of marketing is word of mouth. And I've certainly had a large bit of referrals come to us through word of mouth and through my own network. And that's been great. And then extending that further and expanding that, you look at anything like search, paid search, organic search. We've done quite well on paid search. And then, your standard channels, let's say like outreach on LinkedIn has been very successful for us, as well as your standard distribution channels like Meta, where we can broadcast to a larger community, and maybe a few of them are really strong customers of ours. We get tons of usage through every segment and can build better product for every segment from there.
Makes sense. So, who are your ICPs? Like, who are your ideal customers? And just from my understanding.
Yeah, I think on the surface, everyone believes that we fit very well with e-commerce. We've actually found success outside of that stack really well. E-commerce is kind of the obvious answer for AI ads, but there are other firms that aren't consuming any services or media generation, and those are things like law firms or health service businesses. And first, I think it's really hard to make these businesses attractive to a consumer. You're not really that excited to reach out to a law firm, and you see these personal injury ads on every billboard in America. Enabling them to shift from, let's say, paid search goes out in, let's say, 6 months to 18 months. Google cuts it, replaces it with AI search. They're going to need a new form of distribution. And I think that's going to happen on media channels like Meta or TikTok. So they need to adopt this media segment. And we've had a lot of success with businesses that are probably more traditionally paid search. There's high intent for their services and typically find that through a search query. And we're now transitioning them or enabling them rather, to use media to pitch their services to consumers. So things like law firms, health services, and these are typically businesses spending a healthy portion of their marketing dollars on paid ads, typically through Meta or TikTok.
Awesome. So, Matt, in fact, nowadays, every day there are new companies joining the industry. And on the other hand, many companies just burn out and shut down the systems. And after the research of like interviewing more than 1,500 entrepreneurs, we came to know that many of them just left the industry because they were not able to cope up with the challenges. So I'm sure you must have faced many challenges, but can you share one challenge with us, like the biggest one or the most interesting one, so that our audience should also know that everybody faces challenges. This is not just you.
Sure, yeah, I think there's a lot of punches on a journey to building anything, whether it be a software business or basically anything. And I think some of the punches that you take along the way hurt more than others. And some for me, obviously I left school a little bit early. So I'd say I was quite young, didn't have the same lay of the land as, let's say, those who've been in it for 10 years and had to learn really fast. And I'd say, that wasn't really quite a challenge for me. I have some courage to get through it. But I think for anyone wanting to take that leap, that is quite challenging, deciding, okay, should I finish school or should I not? When is it time for me to leave? And you have to know what you have in your basket before you go and do that thing. Looking back, it was probably far more risky than I thought. Through putting yourself through the ringer, you kind of figure it out, get on your feet, and punch through all the challenges that might come your way. Like, hey, you're too young to do this thing, or you don't know enough to do this thing, or can you actually sell to a customer? A lot of these initial things that people think you can't do because you're young, you probably do far better than these other people just because you have risk against you. You want to prove yourself so bad. that you'll basically do whatever it takes to win. And I think that's both challenging on the customer front, on the relationship front, just company building, recruiting people. You obviously need to pitch them a story that's worth them joining you over a large company like Apple, IBM, Dell, something like that, which is a lot more stable. And we've had success so far. We learn a lot every day, and I think people have really enjoyed taking the leap with us.
Awesome. And when we talk about the challenges, business, a lot of hats, and tough times. So in all these scenarios, the major thing is how you set your work-life balance. So like how do you balance work and personal life?
I wouldn't say there's necessarily a perfect balance. I'd say the way I fix my personal issues is by working harder.
That's smart.
But at this stage of my life, all I really want to do is work. And in fact, when I get distracted for an hour, that's when I get the most pissed off or angry. That's the most challenging period, is to get back from that. But yeah, I'd say, like having good people around me, I think has been super helpful. I have some of the best people in my corner, and they fight with me. And I'd say that totally helps. It would be a lot harder as a team of one to get through some of the challenges that I need to go through, whether it be just chatting with someone or being a little bit more strategic about a really tough challenge, let's say product-wise, customer-wise. If I didn't have anyone to talk to, I think it would be pretty isolating. So I'd say, the personal life, have really good people, have really good friends. For me, I don't mix the two that well. My work is kind of my life, and I enjoy it that way. All of my friends think of it the same way. I like that. But it certainly helps to get through the really tough times.
That's great. All right. So how do you approach hiring and building a strong team?
Yeah, I think I like to bet on underdog. People that are maybe outcasts or overlooked, I think I relate very well with. I have this sort of belief that, in our circle, we could be very uplifting to basically anyone and enable their best ability to come out of them. So yes, while we do seek really good talent, I think just by having or holding a very high caliber of team or circle, I also believe that, there's a lot of people out there that don't have the sexiest credential on their resume that are far more competent than those with the nicest credential. That's kind of how I approach hiring. And we want to talk to everyone, regardless of what their credential says on paper. Can they actually function really well in our business? Do they have pull with some of the customers we already have? What advantages do they have? Is it just a credential? That's probably a red flag. Are they really strong technically, but have just been overlooked? Did they skip out on some school to focus on a project? Do they work a lot on side projects that are really interesting to me? Are they naturally a very curious person? I'd say, those people are very welcomed in our environment, especially those willing to fail. If you've worked on a lot of side projects, you have a very high pain threshold because you failed quite a bit. You're still working on or tinkering on something that you're very curious about, which is probably the opposite of someone who has never failed, has always had a 4.0, has never really faced real pain, has never really felt the brunt of whatever decisions they made. And it's a very challenging thing to teach that person how to adapt to that pain or any hurdles that they may have. So,
got it. So true. Matt, in terms of short-term goals of the company, what's the next big milestone you're going to hit?
Sure. Yeah, I think we're going to launch a few new verticals. Those that we haven't really been focusing on quite as much, we'll start to drift into new and expand new verticals. We've had a lot of success with our small units of very specified verticals. So we'll be expanding there. Business wise, there's two ways to grow, right? You can get new customers, which is obviously what we're going to do. But how do we drive tons more usage on our platform? And I think we have a ton of ideas for how we do that right now. So engaging with customers as we are now, really deepening that relationship. And let's say they have a few vendors in the mix, how can we eat up more and more of that share is something we're thinking a lot about, as well as, how do we just amp up usage? We have a lot of good ideas. We're putting them out with some customers now, and it's going very well, but we do want to see that further. So in the next few months, we will add a ton of customers, new verticals, find success with them, and then increase usage across the board.
That's awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for this conversation. At the end, please give us the biggest piece of advice for our audience, where again, our audience is the entrepreneurs and business owners.
Yeah, I mean, advice-wise, I don't think everyone should be listening to me because I'm maybe haven't done it the best way I possibly could. I could have been wiser in certain moments and read some more material before going into something. But the biggest thing for me, and I think everyone around me sees this, is I push people to just do and then try. And if they fail, they will learn. I think that's how I've learned a lot of things in my own career and life. You go do something, you try it. If you fail, understand deeply why you failed and make sure to never make the same mistake twice. And that's served me quite well. Is that universal advice? Should everyone be following that? Who knows? Because I think for some people, they can have some deadly fails, but has turned out quite well for me so far.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for the beautiful advice, and please let our viewers know how they can reach you if someone wants to reach you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. Taking time out of your day to chat. You can reach us at sandstormapp.com and you can try our product for 3 days as much as you want. And then you can also reach me on LinkedIn or X, Matthew Hoffman on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot me a DM if you want to jam about the space, our product, or if you have any thoughts for me that we can implement.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I will say I wish you best of luck and stay connected.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye. Peace.